Chairperson from the National Council of Provinces, we have the apology of Honorable
Labskahni. Thank you. And from the NA?
Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, good afternoon. I have an apology of the Chief Whip of the Majority Party who's attending PAP matters in Japan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief Whip, Dr. Lutri.
Thank you, Chairperson. Please note the apology of Honorable Kwahube, who is not in the country at the moment.
Honorable Kwahube, the apologies is in front of us. Anyone that have a problem with the apologies, the adoption of the apologies? If none, I take it that we have adopted the apologies. So, honorable members, we will continue now with the meeting. And the next point is the consideration, like was put out in the agenda. Oh, before I go there, sorry, consideration of the agenda. Can we just have someone that would want to propose the agenda? Can we have the
option, Chairperson?
Honorable Dango move, seconder?
I second Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Bartlett.
Bartlett, Mr. Klaso, is there anything that you want to say?
No, ma'am. I just wanted to highlight that this is an amended agenda, which reflects item 2 as the framework for the review of rules. Just want to make that point. Thank you.
Okay, so, but it is on the agenda. At least we saw it on the agenda, so we are going to continue, but thank you for that you have just highlighted it. Now, the agenda have been duly adopted. So the next point, honorable members, that will be the point on the consideration of circumstances surrounding the physical removal of members from the joint sitting of 9 February. In the ATC of 10 February 2023, the Speaker and the Chairperson of the NCOP referred the circumstances of the physical removal of members from the chamber on 9 February 2023 during the joint sitting called for the President's State of the Nation address to the Joint Rules Committee for consideration. This referral was made in terms of Joint Rule 14GA 13. The purpose of this meeting is to consider the referral in terms of applicable rules, and the committee need to express itself on whether the rules applicable to removal of members were applied on the day in question, and also whether any aspect should be referred to another structure of Parliament for further consideration. The report has been compiled of what transpired on the day, which has also been circulated to us as the members, and I will now ask the Secretariat to take us through the report. Mr. Klaso, I don't know who will be presenting the report, but you've got an opportunity now to present the report as the Secretariat.
Madam Chair, thank you so much. With your permission, I may proceed to present the report.
Please do.
Madam Chair, the report was, as the Chair has indicated, was circulated, and it is in line with the joint rules that indicate that when a matter like this has happened, it should be referred to a multi-party structure within 24 hours. And the structure that has been used up to now is a Joint Rules Committee to consider matters of this nature. And I would just like to summarize the report because it has been made available to the honorable members. The report relates to the event of 9 February, the State of the Nation address, and events that happened after the State of the, just at the start of the State of the Nation address. That there were a few points of orders that were raised, and the honorable Speaker warned the honorable members to refrain from raising what she considered to be spurious points of order, and that were tantamount to abuse of the joint rules and disregard for the authority of the chair. Following the interaction between the Speaker and the honorable members, 6 members were asked to leave the chamber, and the members refused. The Sergeant at Arms was called because the rules indicate that when there is such a withdrawal, a refusal, the sergeant at arms or the officer of the Black Rod should be called to assist, and following that, the Parliamentary Protection Services, and of course, we will get to the other point of what eventually transpired. And the point that the Speaker would like to make, the presiding officers on the day would like to make, is that this was in terms of Rule 14G. And this rule deals with whether in disregard of the authority of the chair, or there is disorderly conduct in the House, or a demonstration of contempt of the chair, that the presiding officer may ask a member to leave the chamber. And when there's a refusal, then the steps are then taken. At the point when the members were expected to leave by the Speaker, a large number of members then stood up and engaged in what Speaker considered at the time as disruptive and disorderly conduct by ascending the stage, and later on holding up placards and resisting any attempt to be removed from the chamber. And certain members were observed on the stage on the day, which included Honorable Malema. Owing to what Speaker considered to be an escalation of the situation and a reasonable prospect of violence and serious disruptions as a result of members resisting to be removed, and the defiance of the chair and the storming of the stage, and suspended proceedings in terms of Joint Rule 14K. The proceedings were suspended, and at that point already, members of the security services had already entered the chamber. And of course, the Speaker affirmed their presence in the chamber at that point. And the Speaker's observation is that the entry by members of the security services before they were called was in response to the escalating and unprecedented situation of members storming the stage where the president was seated, and it was meant to avert harm to whomever could have been at risk, and it was correct in terms of Section 4.2. And the Speaker indicates that this was done in terms of Rule 14G A12 and Rule 14K. Now, at this point, we'd just like to highlight what the Powers and Privileges Act says in regard to these matters. Section 2 of the Act provides that the precincts of Parliament is an area of land and every building or part of a building under Parliament's control, and further provides that insofar as it may be necessary for the achievement of the objectives of the Act, in a case where the House or committee is convened beyond the session of Parliament, this Act applies as if the premises were the House or committee sitting where that the matter would have occurred. And Section 4.1 of the Act provides that members of the security services may enter upon or remain in the precincts for the purpose of performing any policing function or perform any policing function in the precincts only with the permission and under the authority of the Speaker or the chairperson. And Section 4.2, that where there is immediate danger to the life or safety of any person or damage to any property, members of the security services may, without obtaining such permission, enter upon and take action in the precincts in so far as it is necessary to avert that danger, and any such action as soon as possible be reported to the Speaker. And Section 7 of the Act, read with Section 13, states that a member is guilty of contempt of Parliament if the member improperly interferes or impedes the exercise or performance of Parliament or a House or committee of its authority or functions, or fails or refuses to comply with an instruction by a duly authorized staff member, or willfully fails or refuses to obey any rule, order, or resolution of the House or Houses. Madam Chair, I don't propose to read all these rules that now follow, where we cite applicable rules, except to say that 14G deals with where there is contempt, disregard of the chair, and gross disorderly conduct. And 14G1 deals with the calling of the usher or the Black Rod when a member refuses to leave. And protection services follow. And of course, when there's the issue of resistance. Now, 8 of the report deals with Rule 14G(a)(12), which provides that, and this is important, that in the event of violence or a reasonable prospect of violence or serious disruption ensuing in the chamber as a result of a member's resisting removal. And I think the first few words are important. Violence or reasonable prospect of violence or serious disruption ensuing in the chamber, which results from the resistance of removal. The Speaker may suspend proceedings, and members of the security services may be called upon by the Speaker or the Chair of the Council to assist with the removal of members from the chamber and the precincts of Parliament in terms of the Powers and Privileges Act. Now, it is the Speaker's conclusion or concluding observations, and why the Speaker is because she's the one who gave the ruling on the day, that the nature of this disruption was such that it sought to hinder the commencement of proceedings and the ability of the President to deliver his State of the Nation address. While the Constitution gives members the right to freedom of speech in exercising their rights constitutionally, the exercise of this right is subject to the rules and orders that we impose on ourselves as members of Parliament. These rules are meant to maintain order, discipline, and decorum so that Parliament can fulfill its constitutional mandate. In terms of the Constitution, the rules must show due regard to representative and participatory democracy, accountability, transparency, and public involvement. The rules, as well as the privileges and rights of members enshrined in the Constitution, must apply equally to all members and cannot be seized upon for the sole benefit of an individual member or political party who determine that they will not allow the business of the House. Speaker has deemed it necessary to cite what was said in the Democratic Alliance and Speaker of the NA in 2016, where the court said it can never, the freedom of speech, the privilege of freedom of speech can never go as far as to give members a license so as to disrupt the proceedings of Parliament, that it may be hamstrung and incapacitated from conducting its business. According to the court, this would detract from the very reason for the existence of Parliament. And the other instance was where the Western Cape High Court stated, it can surely not be the exercise of political free speech and activity as contemplated in section 58(1) to deliberately contravene the rules of Parliament, behave in a gross disorderly manner, defy the authority of the chair, to show contempt to a chair or presiding officer, or deliberately and without legitimate reason raise purported points to stifle political free speech of another member, even when you have utter disregard or contempt for such a member. Such incident and conduct can surely not be within the boundaries which the Constitution sets. Now, the Speaker indicates that the presiding officers have an obligation to enforce and affirm the rules of Parliament. And have you, as the person who gave the ruling on the day, was that the behavior of the members concerned was completely unprecedented and a flagrant disregard of the respect members must show to one another as members, but also as fellow South Africans who may come from different perspectives, but are equally legitimate and worthy of representation. And with your permission, Ma'am, I'll just read the last two paragraphs and then I conclude. The actions of the members involved caused serious disruption and had the potential to cause violence. Such actions fly in the face of our hard-fought for democracy and democratic project we are all seeking to measure. That's what the Speaker says. They're very members of Parliament and all other persons present cannot be negated, the individuals and the institution. As I understand it, this committee needs to establish whether it is as indicated by yourself, ma'am, and also whether there is any aspect of this that may need to be referred to.
Is it me or is it Mr. Krasa?
My apologies, ma'am. I just lost connection there, but I was at the end of the report. That marks the end of the report, ma'am. Next.
Thank you. I thought it was my connection that was now because I was changing from the hotspot to my Wi-Fi because we had load shedding, but at least it is now over. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Tlaso. Honorable members, that deals with the report from the speaker on the matter before us. And I will now open the floor for a discussion on the speaker's report. Please be reminded that the joint rules for disruptions in joint sittings are applicable to this incident. Any member who wishes to make an input should now raise your hands and we will allow inputs on this discussion. Is noted. Can we have more hands before we start with Honorable Lisoma? Yes, Honorable Lisoma, you may then start, but members can indicate their hands as we continue.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and good afternoon, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, as well as the Chairperson of the Council of National Prof NCOP, and your good self, Honorable Chair, and colleagues, and everybody on the platform. Chair, allow me to start by saying that sometimes we want to reason where reason doesn't resonate. Probably the Fifth Parliament, we are bearing fruit of the Fifth Parliament where we had an understanding that even not to tamper with the dress code and allow everybody to wear what he or she pleases to wear, because we had an understanding that the dress code doesn't deal with the content that the person wants to pursue in Parliament when engaging on matters or doing oversight or exercising his own right and representing his or her own constituency, as it were. Having said that, let's appreciate the report presentation that has been presented by the National Assembly Secretary and align and say that I would like to pursue this meeting to agree and support and adopt the report presented by the Speaker as read by Mr. X. Secondly, a small working group of this joint sitting to be urgently to be established to review the joint rules for a firmer consequence on the conduct which may warrant as such. Citing B of that, which is point 1 of that, is that 14G, a member ordered to withdraw 14H, referral of a member's conduct to the House and to sanctions, which is 4.1 as read by Mr. X, and 2 of the powers and privileges and immunities of Parliament and of provincial legislatures, because we're in Parliament. Then I'll leave that part and say, probably to look at the possibilities of a question of financial sanctions, depending on the gravity of the misconduct or disruption, or consideration to be given to referring the matter to the powers and privileges, as it were. So in short, Chair, I'm saying that we accept and agree with the report presented on behalf of the Speaker by Mr. Kaso, as well as that a small team to firm up the rules, because they are a little bit relaxed, which will also look at the future possibilities that we never would have envisaged that will happen, so that we close all the loopholes that may be, and which will be in line what the courts have also made judgment upon, which doesn't undermine anybody or any member of Parliament to exercise his or own rights to raise his issues, but also it must be in an orderly manner in line with the rules. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Lisoma. We will now give to the Deputy Chief Whip, Honorable Tlakude.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP. Let me join my colleague in welcoming the report of the Speaker, and I suggest that we indeed support it as a true reflection of what transpired on that day. But what we need to do, I want to agree more with my colleague, Honorable Soma, that there should be consequence management. Removing people from their house is not enough, because they keep on doing the same thing. keep on being serial offenders in this regard. So we need to tighten the rules so that the joint sitting is respected, and also that if we hit people in their pockets, they will refrain from repeating what the disruptions in the house. So I support that, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, and that the joint subcommittee must look into these rules with the assistance of the with the table staff members, that we tighten the rules. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Whip. I will now call on the Honorable H.M. Papo. Mr. Papo. Honorable Papo.
The Deputy Chair, I would agree with what the previous members have said. Particularly, the work is so urgent to strengthen the joint rules. We cannot have a repeat of what happened this year in the next SONA and any joint sitting going forward. So it's not like a job which we need to take, because there's also already a base. If you look at the rules of the NCOP, you look at the ones of the NA, there's a basis on which that joint team can work on, so that we tighten. Because the rules are made, Parliament is a place where people must engage in robust debates, disagree, but trying to obstruct any member of the NCOP or NA from exercising their right to freedom of speech, or anybody who is there on the authority of the presiding officers, is not what our parliament is all about. Worse, if we even use posters inside the house when there's a platform to debate, as if we are sitting on a pavement with posters. That should not be allowed, because Parliament cannot be a place where the worst in us come out. The best in us must come out. Ideas, views, even if they disagree, we disagree. We cannot allow a parliament to descend to bruteness and rudeness and disruptions, and that we call that a parliamentary system. So for me, this is a very, very urgent task, so that we can adopt those amended rules, joint rules, and ensure that what happened in February does not happen again. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Papo. Honorable Makause.
Thank you, Chairperson of the session. Chairperson, let me state outrightly that the report presented here is a one-sided report which seeks to paint a picture of a speaker who is much more objective when presiding over a section or session of both the National Assembly and a joint sitting of the NCOP. Firstly, Chairperson, we do not agree with this report, which is so one-sided. The reality is that members of Parliament in the Republic of South Africa are suppressed. They are not allowed to exercise their democratic right in a sitting of Parliament, be it National Assembly, NCOP, or a joint sitting. Hence, I said this report from our side is disregarded because it's also one-sided. Chairperson, on point 7, the Speaker says she suspended the plenary owing what she considered to be an escalating situation with the reasonable prospects of violence and serious disruptions as a result of EFF members resisting to be removed. Yet on her closing remarks says the disruption was such that it sought to hinder the commencement of the proceedings. Which is which there? because it is clear that even her presentation, even her argument, she doesn't know what she's talking about. We're dealing with a confused presiding officer here who's constantly suppressing members of
Honorable
the
Makause,
EFF.
and Honorable
Thank you,
Makause,
Chair.
could you please
Point of
refrain?
order.
No,
Yeah.
it's fine. Chief already finished speaking. It's fine. I was on the point to say that let us refrain from actually insult one another. Let us discuss what is the point on the table, and we will now continue. And I will, in fact, I will give Honorable Jantjie before I give the Chief Whip of the National Council of Provinces. Honorable Jantjie.
Thank you, Chairperson of the session. I'm glad that I can speak before him because he raised my hand before me. That's my luck today. Thank you. I just
We are
want.
speaking about levels, Honorable Member. Don't forget that.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Lucas. No, just a couple of issues to add on. Firstly, to welcome the report presented. A report prepared by the speaker, a report that outlines for those of us who were in that joint sitting of SONA, every detail, every step of what happened. I connect with the report because the report, it is so concise about what happened in detail. And so it's a true reflection of what happened on the 9th of February, 2023. And therefore, having supported this report, I hope therefore that Honorable Makause's concern will be attended to and addressed when the members who have been cited here would have a chance for themselves to put their side of the story. When that time comes, because this matter has been referred, because it's not just we are now just expecting a report, just endorsing it. As Honorable Lagote is saying, there must be consequences. They still have got a chance to go and explain themselves so that we have their side of the story. Here, this is the report of the speaker, and it details the matters as they were. I'm also in support, and that is the next item that perhaps when we get to that item, we're going to move with speed in terms of this working group that must immediately undertake the task of firming up these joint rules so that we have no loopholes. When a joint session is convened, that it gets to be convened for that purpose and nothing else. And I'm also happy to join Honorable Lesoma that that team also to be able to attend to even issues of decorum, including this uniform issues. I don't know about the NCOP. I know in the NA, with recently adopted rules that bar the carrying of placards. And if that has not happened in the NA, I would ask that the Joint Rules Working Group does the same, because I would have added another charge, not just that one of storming the stage, but of keeping placards in the house if it was.
I would think let us refrain from going into what we want to discuss in the next point or in another platform.
Okay.
So that we just continue with what we are now dealing with immediately
Order
in front of us.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, thank you very much, Honorable Jantjie. Honorable Mohai.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair of the National Council of Provinces, and greetings to the Speaker and all members. I am sufficiently covered, Deputy Chair, by members who are supporting that, we are agreeing that we adopt the report, and I second the adoption of the report, and that also there has to be consequences for grave disorder and serious undermining of the decorum of the House, the rules and conduct that is expected of members of Parliament. So I move really that this report be adopted, and we earnestly engage in the work as the other items are suggesting, that we beef up these rules and anarchy should not prevail in the House when the millions of people expect a very structured discussions and debates to take place. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Moai. There is two other hands that have been raised. That is by the Honorable Mokause and the Honorable Tlakude. I will allow the both of you to speak, just really with a precaution that no one should try to respond to someone else, since we are trying to determine whether we are going to put up a team that will listen to both sides of the what transpired before we continue with the meeting. Otherwise, it will become now a stone throwing that we please want members to refrain from. That is what I just want to say. Honorable Makause, under the conditions that I have laid, I'm allowing you for a second time.
Chairperson, let me also just mention this, that I'm not going to speak under any condition from your side. You do not have the right to do so, to let members of this committee speak under your...
The mere fact that I preside here gives me that authority.
You do not have a right, Chairperson. You did not vote for me. The EFF voted for me to sit in this committee. Now, don't impose yourself on me. I'm not from your party. Chairperson, Mr. Janchi says that the matter has been referred. Where was this matter referred to before the consideration of this report? I have pointed out in my first input, Chairperson, that your members are speaking past each other and they do not speak as a collective. Where was this report referred? Which platform was used to sit and discuss that particular report where Mr. Janki says it was referred? And where was it referred to? Chairperson, lastly, don't impose yourself on us, please. The anarchic behavior
Point of order.
Honorable Moai is speaking about. This is exactly
Honorable Papo, can you please allow me?
This is exactly that you are displaying. The anarchic behavior.
Honorable Mokause, thank you. Thank you very much. I think you have said what you wanted to say. But one thing that you must know, we are here as a joint rules of parliament, and we are not a party. And I'm not leading a party. I'm leading this meeting. And it's all the only thing that I want to say to you, and begin really to respect others as you want to be respected, please. Honorable Nkosi.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chair, the chairperson of the session. And one chair must join the honorable members by welcoming the report presented before us. I want to join the members as well for the adoption of the report as presented. The report is very much clear and straightforward, Honorable Deputy Chair, and I fully support that the committee must be established so that they can look all these things, and also the consequence management. The Deputy Chief Whip is quite correct, and the Chief Whip, that removing members is not enough. Something must happen to those that are misbehaving in the House. Lastly, Chair, we want to request here, we are all members of Parliament, honorable members. We are not here as parties, but members. So we need to respect the chairperson, whoever is chairing the sessions. We must be able to respect him or her. We cannot come in this meeting and say, you are not voted for me. This is the chairperson of the committee, and we are all expected to respect. If something is wrong, and if you are doing the wrong thing in the meeting, the chairperson must be in a position to call us in order. So there's no way that we can say we are political parties here. That is not applying in this meeting. Thank you very much, Chair. We are appealing to honorable members to respect one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Nkosi. Honorable Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP. Let me start by saying that we are governed by the rules of the House, so respecting each other is of paramount importance. Honorable Chairperson, I forgot to raise this matter earlier, that this issue was also taken to the Interparliamentary Union, and we were embarrassed as a country when our speaker was called to a Human Rights Commission of the IPU to come and account on this. But fortunately, they had all the evidence, they viewed the video, and their conclusion was that this matter of the EFF was inadmissible. So what I want to raise here is that before we can take any matter to any international forum, we must exhaust all internal processes that are before us. So going abroad and embarrassing our parliament and also our speaker as if she's a dictator was uncalled for. And we therefore applaud the decision of that Human Rights Commission of the IPU for dismissing this case. So indeed, we must adopt this report and the matter be dealt with accordingly. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP.
Let me express appreciation to all the members that made inputs on the report of the speaker. And there is just two issues that was in front of us as we were discussing that, and that is that we must now adopt the report, which in the proposals that was made is duly adopted.
Chairperson.
Secondly, that the matter be referred to a small team to review the issue as well as to review the joint rules and to see whether there is reason to work in the rules to make sure that we actually avoid or that we have measures to address issues if same might occur next time. So with that said, I want to conclude on this first item, and I will now go to the second item. Honorable members, I now want to recognize the Secretariat to make a presentation on the second item on the agenda, namely the framework for the review of the joint rules.
My hand
I
was
will
up,
now
Chairperson.
recognize the Secretariat and I will ask them to make the presentation.
My hand was up, Chairperson.
Honorable Makause, we have concluded on the first item. We have
You are
concluded and
again-
everyone have agreed.
You are again using your powers to suppress us.
I am not
Chairperson,
going to
the
allow
previous
you.
speaker was completely out of order. And there's nothing about all
Point of
those
order, I think the
that
school
you
can
have
be
said
abused by
about the
Member Makause.
IPU.
Then
There's
you should have
absolutely
called her out
nothing.
of order
member
while she
doesn't
was
want to
speaking.
partake in this meeting. She must go out.
Honorable members, can you
I'm not
please
going to leave
also,
this meeting.
can you,
You can't be abused by Member Makause.
can you please, members, can you please allow me to chair this meeting? And at this moment, I'm calling on the Secretariat to present the second item. We all know what the rules say with regards to points of order. And that there was no point of order at the time when the speaker was still on the platform. So we are continuing, and I would
My
request
hand
the
was up
Secretariat.
and you
Your
decided
hand was
to
your
disregard
hand was never up. Your hand was up after she have concluded speaking. Whilst I was speaking, you started to scream at me before you raised your hand, and she was already concluded what she have said. So honorable members, if you allow me, I'm going to continue with the meeting, and I request the Secretariat to present the second item. Over to you, to the Secretariat.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, Deputy Chairperson. I'm going to request the colleagues to place the document on the screen. This relates to the framework, proposed framework, that will be that this joint subcommittee on the review of rules will be seized with. It relates to the review of the joint rules. And the chairpersons of the subcommittee have indicated that we should point out that there was work that had been started in the fifth parliament on the review of the joint rules. And there was some progress made in respect of the mandates of the Constitutional Review Committee and the scrutiny of delegated legislation. Those matters were referred to the subcommittee, and there were deliberations on the issues. There were also rules on the disruptions in joint sittings, which is what we've just dealt with now. Those rules were done in that parliament in 2015. And also the subcommittee processed some amendments in respect of Chapter 1 to 2A of the joint rules. And the leader of government business at the time made certain submissions to that process. However, some of the work was not concluded, as honorable members would be well aware. And for that reason, the joint subcommittee will be undertaking this exercise. And its mandate, as the chairs of the subcommittee understand it, is to make sure that these rules, the review of the joint rules, that process is finalized before the end of this term. If the document may go up, please. Basically, this is some of the work that will be done without getting into details. The subcommittee will consider its draft program and will consider the issue of inviting the public to make comments, and will look at the work that has been done previously. And go up, please. If my colleagues could just move with me, please. And there will be workshops which will look at the aspects of the NA rules and the aspects of the NCOP rules. As honorable members may be aware, the NA rules were reviewed in 2016 and the NCOP rules were reviewed in 2021. And a lot of new things were introduced in those rules. And so this subcommittee will review what has been done and see what can be brought onto joint rules. We'll look at the submissions that will have been submitted or made. And of course, we'll consider all these chapters, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, the Joint Committee System, Chapter 4, and including the schedules. So the intention of this is just to indicate the work that will be done, but the understanding is that this work must be finalized before the end of this parliament, and that is what the joint subcommittee will be seized. Thank you so much, Madam Deputy Speaker, Deputy Chairperson. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taso. Before we continue, before we continue with the report, I just want to say I want to thank the Secretariat for the report as they have been reviewed. Presented. It is a framework, but we will allow discussion for this specific, or we will allow members to comment on the framework as presented by the Secretary of the NA. So members, you can raise your hands. Honorable Makause.
Chairperson, this program was not tabled before the subcommittee on the review of rules. Procedurally, it must be first tabled there. So we are not following procedure here. How did this particular document arrive in this meeting, Chair? Maybe you need to respond on that first.
Now ask all your questions. We will continue. We will get responses. You can ask all your questions. Is it on the framework? Honorable Makause? Honorable Makause?
Yes. Yes.
Is it on the framework? Is it the framework that you are speaking about?
Yes, Chair.
Is the framework fine? Do you have any other questions? If you
I
don't
would
have,
love this question to be responded, Chairperson.
we will respond after we've taken all the inputs. Then we will allow the response. So we are going to continue. Honorable Isoma.
Thank you very much, Chair. with the flow of what we discussed earlier on and with this item now, I will request this joint sitting to accept the framework with an understanding that it's a framework that will guide the joint subcommittee, rules subcommittee, if anything arises that they deem necessary to be populated there as one of the activities. We are giving them that go ahead to do that, and also to populate the dates based on the having looked at the second quarter program, so that all members they sit as soon as possible, and this matter is concluded within the stipulated time as presented. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Lesoma. Honorable Tlakude, the Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson of the NCOP. Indeed, I follow suit that we accept this, we adopt this framework as presented by Mr. Klaso. And also to say that we'll not have a joint subcommittee, a joint rule subcommittee meeting without this framework being adopted in this joint rules committee meeting. So that is the response of the questions that was asked to you, Comrade, Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, honorable members. Now, it's fine that you have opted to respond because it's actually assisting in coming to the resolution of where we are going to take this meeting. On the question of Honorable Makause, the Joint Rules Committee have to sit to actually refer the review of the joint rules to the subcommittee. We have been going through the process of reviewing the NCOP rules, and I know I was responsible as a presiding over that process, and that is exactly how it was done. So that is actually the first thing that I want to say. If there is no other comments by any other member, I want to thank you for your participation. But before that, I just want us to actually conclude on what we have resolved here. Honorable Abskahni, fortunately you raised your hand before I concluded.
Thank you very much, Chair.
We received an apology from you, but I see you have joined us. Thank you.
Thank you. And the fact that I had to raise an apology is the point that I want to raise. I do know that it's very difficult to have these joint meetings and to find the time, but can we please consult the two houses with each other to start a meeting at 12 o'clock whilst committees are busy with budget things is very, very unfortunate. And we know, given the framework, that we have a lot of work to be done. Can we try and find a time that would more or less suit most of the people better? That's all I wanted to raise. Thank you, Chair.
It has been raised, Julie, earlier in the meeting by Honorable Makause, and I have again advised that the WIPRI should really find one another in the WIPRI meetings with regards to issues around the scheduling of meetings. But thank you for that point. It doesn't make it less important now that you have raised it. But we have discussed the 2 points here, and we have decided, or we have resolved, that we need to put up a task team that will deal with the first issue, that is on the consideration of the report of the Speaker on the removal of members from the House in terms of the rules applicable. And also we have decided to actually refer the framework to the subcommittee of the Joint Rules Committee. Now, I just want really guidance from the Secretariat as to do we then now take these proposals and allow the presiding officers to deal with it, or should we deal with it in this specific meeting? It's all that I want clarity on, because then it will allow us to close the meeting. Yes, Mr. Kaso.
Madam Chairperson, the last point, if I got it right, it should now be for the speaker and the chairperson to decide where to refer the matter. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. You have actually exactly confirmed what I was thinking, that this is now in front of the presiding officers and they will deal with the issue. The point on the framework is now actually referred to a subcommittee on the review of the joint rules. And with all of that said, let me thank all of you members for your participation in this meeting. And let us once again really apologize to members that it took more time than we actually envisaged, but we are still within our time range. And I hope the issue of scheduling of meetings will be addressed by the WIPRI. Thank you very much. The meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you.
Long live the
Thank you,
chair.
Chair, colleagues.
Long
Thank you.
live the chair. Long live.
Long live.